Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Friday, July 24th, 2020, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the RealClearPolitics No Toss-Ups map. So if you're wondering what this is not the RCP estimate for the 2020 election. This is not their ratings. They purely take the polling data that they've received and compile it all together, find the average, and when they say no toss-ups, that means they would just absolutely, if this was the election held today based off polling numbers, this is what the map would be. So if you look, obviously Joe Biden has a very strong lead over President Trump. But the reason why I'm pointing this out is because this was nowhere near Hillary Clinton's numbers 4 years ago. Yes, she was around 330 at a given point during the campaign season, but for an incumbent president to be this far underwater in their re-election bid, nowhere comparable to where Donald Trump was just 4 years ago. And the fact that Joe Biden is outperforming Hillary Clinton and her numbers means that it's way more difficult for Donald Trump to win re-election. Because when Trump was running, a lot of people were still, saying they wouldn't vote for President Trump when the pollsters called them to ask, but then ended up voting for him on election day. After 4 years, people have definitely gotten a lot more comfortable with saying they are supporting President Trump. Half the country still, or at least 42% of the country, believes that he currently is doing a good job in office. So those people that are answering those questions and, saying that they are voting for Donald Trump, there's probably a lot less of that silent majority. A lot of them aren't so silent at this point in time. We've seen a number of people come out in firm opposition, to the Democrats and to the Black Lives Matter movement on social media, people that were quiet 4 years ago. So I will say that President Trump has given his supporters a platform to have their voices heard, whether that's through Twitter or through anything that he really says. A lot of them do agree with what comes out of the White House. But 4 years ago, Trump wasn't in the White House, and you can't necessarily say Trump is the same candidate from 4 years ago. When we were talking about 2016, the country wasn't as divided as it is today. We are definitely in a more divided nation, and the fact that race relations is a #1 issue in America, and the last time that happened was in the 60s, tells you a lot about our current state as a nation. So, looking at this no toss-ups map, I think the polls will actually be way more accurate than where they were 4 years ago. A lot of people discredit them just because of a minor error. Literally a minor error. They projected Hillary Clinton would get 2 over the needed number, and a lot of people said she had a 98% chance of winning on election day. Well, you're referring to the Huffington Post, and that's not necessarily what everyone believed. So, yes, you can probably attack the Huffington Post for that, but outside of that, there's no real ground for you to stand on because the data indicated the race was always going to be close in the final 2 weeks of the election. And if we look at the no toss-up states for the Biden and Trump campaign, we see how many of them actually flip. I made a little map here so you can understand the states that were projected to go to Hillary Clinton based off the polls and also Joe Biden. That's around 272 electoral votes. Joe Biden now wins 80 more electoral votes from states that were expected to go to Donald Trump on election day, including states that may be a little surprising, like Nevada or Arizona or Ohio or North Carolina or Florida. Biden now has pretty strong leads in actually all of these states. I think Florida actually has the largest lead for him out of any of these highlighted 5 states, or 5 states plus congressional district, because Biden would win Nebraska second based off the data we have. So Biden is probably going to outperform Hillary Clinton, but this actually puts us in a very good understanding of the perspective comparing Biden to Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton was underwater in states such as Nevada. She was not leading in Florida or North Carolina or Ohio on election day, or even Arizona. And all of these states have since taken a turn in favor of Joe Biden. So the polls, if you look at them, they were only wrong in 4 states, and based off the margin of error, were only wrong in Wisconsin. So that's 1 out of 50 states plus the District of Columbia in which the polls were truly wrong. So that argument a lot of the times is invalid. But if we're looking at the recent data from 2018, the polls were actually pretty spot on, especially on the generic ballot and the 2016 popular vote data. So the data that shows Biden with a 7-8 point lead nationwide, that could end up being true. It's very possible. So looking at this electoral map, Hillary Clinton wasn't entering into the election with an overall, yes, she had an advantage based off this map, but an overall landslide type scenario. A lot of people had said, Hillary Clinton had a shot at Texas. People said that she could have won Kansas. That's not true. Okay, just because, Steve Kornacki puts it as a toss-up back during Hillary Clinton's convention bump does not mean that they classified Texas as a toss-up on election day. And to be fair, it was closer than the polls expected. So when we look at this map, you actually can see how much Hillary Clinton did worse in comparison to Joe Biden. Not only this, but on the RCP electoral map for both candidates, let's go ahead and take a look. Joe Biden has 222 electoral votes. Trump has 115. In 2016, he went in with 164, and Hillary Clinton only had 203. The only state that actually I think has moved to the right in terms of swing states is Wisconsin, based off their lean Democrat characterization, which is now a toss-up characterization. On this map, you can see which states have taken a turn in favor of the Democrats or the Republicans. South Dakota, Kansas, Tennessee, and Wisconsin all took a turn in favor of the right, whereas Colorado, New Mexico, Texas, Virginia, among the swing states mentioned, and Maine have all taken a turn in favor of the Democratic Party. But if you're looking at what the ratings are, one, I guess a lean characterization means that it's tilted one step further to the right, and then obviously likely would be two. But most notably, Texas. Texas has taken a turn from, in 2016, being characterized as a likely Republican state, and as it should have been, it was a 12-point margin for Trump, based off the data that they had. So Texas very well should have been a likely state, but Donald Trump underperformed that data by 3%. So let's apply that to the data we have now. Well, Trump wins by 0.2% if this election was held today. But if we swing it by the same margin that it swung back in 2016, Biden would win by 2.8% statewide. That's pretty significant to note. So there's a reason why as to some of these states are toss-ups now, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that Donald Trump is underperforming in some key states. If you take a look, Indiana has taken a step to the left. Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, solid Republican states. This is not saying they will be competitive, but the margins might be closer than where they were in 2016, which isn't a good sign for Donald Trump, because if he is to win this election, he needs to retain all his 2016 support, because he only narrowly won 4 years ago. Losing any percentage, even if 1% of his supporters, move away to the Biden campaign, Trump loses the election. Trump needs to count on the fact that there are Biden supporters or Clinton supporters moving over into the Trump column. And based off all of the data that we're seeing, that's not happening at all. There's literally no chance of that. Okay, so Trump needs a miracle in order to win this election. And, we're starting to see numbers that we saw when Jimmy Carter was running against Ronald Reagan, except this time the parties are flipped. The Democratic Party is entering in with a very strong advantage, and it looks like they might be ousting a Republican or an incumbent president in a very large possible scenario. Because the no toss-ups map, if that holds on Election Day, that'll be news. Because Obama didn't get these numbers in 2012, Trump didn't get these numbers in 2016. This is comparable to Obama's 2008 victory. Okay, Bush did not get a margin over 300 electoral votes both times. So both of those elections were close. 2012 was a little bit closer than this one, and 2016 was closer than 2012. But this election is shaping up to be a Biden, I guess you could say, based off our current climate, a landslide. Anything 350 plus, I would say, based off the numbers that we have now, is a landslide type scenario. But that's just because of the fact that we are very polarized as a nation, and we likely won't see any candidates getting any type of Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon, FDR type landslide victories anytime soon in the near future. So looking at the states that has flipped, Arizona, North Carolina, and Florida, I don't think any of those three are surprises. Nevada was always expected to go to the Democrats, even though the polls may have indicated otherwise. Ohio, I think, is the real one that's a little bit surprising. I think Nebraska's 2nd District had a point in time where it went to Obama in 2008, went to Romney in 2012, went to Trump in 2016, but I definitely could see it going to Biden here. But looking at Ohio, I think Ohio is actually pretty surprising, considering that Trump won the state of Ohio in 2016 by 8%, but led by 4% on Election Day. That's a 4.5% swing, 3.5%. So that's pretty significant. I don't think that Biden will carry Ohio on Election Day. I don't typically characterize it for him. But he's currently doing mildly okay there, but a lot of the undecideds there typically split for the GOP. So take Ohio out of the scenario. Let's compare it to North Carolina in 2016. Let's go ahead and take a look. North Carolina is another state that's projected to flip. Trump led by 1%. It swung by 2.7%. So in that scenario, Biden would still lose North Carolina. He would need to run up the numbers a little bit larger in order to actually win this on Election Day. But that's assuming that the pollsters have not adjusted for their errors from 4 years ago, and assuming they didn't have 4 years to literally rework their system, which they definitely have. So the polls, again, I think will be way more accurate as they were in 2018. Let's take a look at Florida. This is another state where Trump led by 0.1%, I believe, or 0.2%, ended up winning by 1.2%. Biden wins here by 7% based off the data we have. That's a strong lead. 13 points in the most recent poll from Quinnipiac University. Only had him up 4 back in May. Let's go ahead and take a look at Arizona, the final state that's flipping, except for Nevada, but Nevada we know is probably going to go to the Democrats. Nevada, Arizona, 2.8% margin of victory for Joe Biden. Back in 2016, it was 3.5 for Trump. He ended up winning by 4%. It was a 4% lead. He ended up winning by 3.5%. So it swung in favor of the Democrats by 0.5%. So in this scenario, Biden would still carry Arizona. So the only state that could actually have been, the only two states that would be wrong, I guess, are North Carolina and Ohio. And still, in that scenario, if we go ahead and take a look, both of them, even if Trump wins both of these, Biden still wins the election, even with just the states that Hillary Clinton was expected to get. So Trump's going to have to completely rewrite this electoral map. He's at a very bad position at this point. Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, yes, they were expected to go to Hillary Clinton, but that's what the no toss-ups map, and the data did not indicate that the races were going to be blowouts. The races are indicating that Biden will have a very commanding lead over Donald Trump on Election Day in all of these states characterized for him. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already. There should be a little circle that you can go ahead and press. On your screen is the Instagram and Twitter. Let's Talk Elect for Instagram and LT Elections for Twitter. On your screen, there should be a video that you can go ahead and watch if you want to, and then a playlist for my 2020 election nights. It's pretty much just an election night compiled into 30 minutes. Again, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all later today.